In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use a Slack bot to automate your onboarding. We're going to be going through how to actually use this, how to actually set up the Slack bot within your Slack channel, and the different automations you need to actually make this successful. There's a ton of different use cases of how you can actually use these different Slack bots within your agency. Today, we're focusing mainly on onboarding, which is the first impression your client actually has of your agency. Using this Slack bot and these different automations we're going to be building out live in this video, you can basically convert your agency from manual checkout to a self checkout, allowing your client to actually onboard themselves through the different steps within your agency. I'm going to be going over how to do all of that without hiding anything in this video. If you're looking for a better solution to your current onboarding process, then this is the video for you. We use this within our Slack onboarding at my agency Fluxomate, which helps agency owners all over the world set up skill-proof systems for their agencies. It's a massive game changer and just an easy way that you can just streamline that onboarding, avoiding delays, and just provide your clients with a better experience. If any of that sounded interesting, then trust me, you're actually going to enjoy this video. So let's get straight into how to actually use a Slack bot to automate your onboarding in your agency. So like I said in the introduction, we're going to be going over 3 different things today. Firstly, how to actually use this. Secondly, we're going to set up the Slack bot. And thirdly, we're actually going to set up the different automations that actually enable you to use this Slack bot to actually automate your onboarding. But the first thing we need to talk about is how to actually use this. Now, the main purpose I'm going to be talking about in this video is onboarding. Now, don't get me wrong, you can do so much more with Slack apps, but that's just the main topic of this video. We're going to talk about how you can actually onboard. And in this example, we're going to be talking about client onboarding. So whenever a new client joins your company or your agency, you can easily onboard them with the rest of your team, or the team is actually going to be looking after them. You can use this exact same thing for team onboarding. So rather than a new client coming in, you could use this for a new employee actually joining your agency and becoming part of your team. These two are practically interchangeable. I don't think people talk enough about team onboarding, because just like your clients, you need to make sure they have a good experience when they first come in and avoid any delays. So client onboarding is 100% very important, but I would also suggest setting what I'm about to show you today for your team onboarding. Like I said, this is pretty much interchangeable. So whatever we do today is be very, very easy to copy to whatever circumstances you actually want to take care of. So the current model of onboarding, which I call the old model, is whenever a client pays you, you schedule an onboarding call, then you have to wait 2 to 3 days for the onboarding call to actually have. Then you go ahead and actually have the onboarding call, and that's when you actually start the service. This isn't wrong. A lot of people use this, but it can cause delays in the process, which you don't want. You want to get your client a win as soon as you possibly can, which is why we go on to the new model, which is what I'm going to show you how to do today. So whenever a client pays, you first invite them to Slack. When they join Slack, all they have to do is press a button and they basically get onboarded by a bot, and then you can start the service without any delays. If you think of an agency like a supermarket, rather than having the cashier at the checkout that automatically scans all the items for you, we're implementing basically a self-checkout where your client can just come in and automatically onboard themselves. Now, a very, very important announcement I have to make is that your agency is not a supermarket. I do know that. And I'm not saying this will work for every single niche and different industry. So I don't think this is the ultimate solution to onboarding. But throughout this whole channel, the main thing I'm trying to show you is different tools you can actually use and give to your customer success managers to make their life easier. And this is one of the things that you can use all new clients to make that onboarding process a bit smoother and improve their experience. So like I said, I don't think you should completely change the old method, because just because it's old doesn't mean it's not working, especially with the agency. You need that human interaction. However, you could introduce this as part of your onboarding to streamline the process a bit more, if that makes sense. Like I said, you could use this for client onboarding, employee onboarding. There's a bunch of different use cases, but it can be a real game changer in terms of streamlining that experience for all your different people that are joining your company. All right, guys, so now that we talked about how to actually use this, I want to go straight into the technical side of things, and we want to set up that Slack bot. So the first thing we actually need to do is create an app. Now, don't worry, this is not going to involve any programming. It's not complicated at all. It's just as simple as going over to slackapps.com and actually creating an app. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to do this together. If you head over to api.slack.com and you want to sign in or log in if you don't already have an app, once you're here, you're going to see this homepage. All you want to do is go over to your apps in the top right hand corner, and you can see I've got a couple of tests I was doing before this video and the app that I actually use within my own Slack channel. But for this, we're going to press this big green button and create a new app. We're going to go from scratch, and for the name, I'm going to call this YouTube Testing App. nice and clear. And then obviously you're going to choose your Slack channel just like that. Then we're going to go ahead and actually create an app. And once we're here, we see a bunch of information. Don't get overwhelmed, guys. We're going to configure all of this together. The first thing we want to do is actually go down to features, and then we go to OAuth and permissions. This is actually going to allow us to set the certain things our app is actually able to do. So if you scroll down to the bot scopes and the user token scopes, here we want to add different scopes. And as you can see, there's a bunch of different options, and depending on what you need the app to do, you can add as many as you want. But for this specific case scenario, I only want to add chat, write, add another one, I am read, and I am write. And we'll do the exact same thing for the user token scopes. So chat, write, I am read, and I am write. Like I said, guys, this is literally just the basic side of things. Once you actually start developing your Slack app a bit more, you need to add more of these scopes. And as you can see, man, there's a bunch of different options from bookmarks, canvases, channels, inviting team members, everything like that. There's so many options you can actually do. But for now, these are the three very basic ones that we actually need just to get started. So once you've actually gone ahead and done that, you go over to basic information. And if you scroll down, this is where you can actually edit the design of your app. So the color, the name, even add an icon. So just to show you an example for this, I'm just gonna add a random icon I've got here. So I went ahead and added a random icon. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, it changes depending on what you want. Here you can set up the image, even the background color if you want it. So let's say if you wanted to do a blue instead, and obviously the name of your actual app as well as the description. Once you've actually done that, if you scroll all the way back up, you can see this little button that says install to your workspace. We're gonna go ahead and do that. And this is just basically adding the app to your Slack workspace. So you want to wait for it to load and then just press allow. And now if I open up my Slack channel and I go over to apps, you can see that YouTube testing app with that specific icon is there. Very cool, guys. Now that that's done, we've actually gone ahead and created an app. Now we have to actually connect the app to make.com. And there's two main things we need to do here. Firstly, we need to set up the webhook so we can actually interact with the app and do different things when someone presses a button or anything like that. And secondly, we want to actually go ahead and actually connect Slack. So for this, we're going to use a make.com. Now, I think this is possible with Zapier. However, I haven't personally tested it. So if you've done this with Zapier, let me know in the comments. But yeah, for this example, we're going to be using make.com because it's the easier way to do this, in my opinion. So if I go ahead and you go over to my make.com account, the one I use for my YouTube, and I go over to scenarios, I want to go ahead and just create a new scenario. Now, all we're doing here is just creating a webhook so you can actually use it to interact with different things that are happening within the application. So I'm going to go over to create new scenario. I'm going to rename this to my Slack app webhook. And then for the actual trigger, I'm going to go over to webhook. I'm going to go custom webhook and I'm going to add a new one and press save. Now that we've got that, we can just copy that address. And if you go back to our Slack app and we go over to features to interactivity and shortcuts, we want to go ahead and turn that on. And then we're going to enter that webhook right here. Perfect, guys. So now we've connected webhook. The second thing we need to do is just connect Slack or the Slack bot to the specific make account that we're going to be using. This is also very simple. All we're going to do is add another module. I'm going to search for Slack. And then you can pick any one, doesn't really matter. So let's say we want to create a message. And then you can see I've got a bunch of different connections here. I want to go ahead and add a new connection. And this is going to be a Slack bot, not a Slack user. I'm going to name this my YouTube testing bot. And instead of just pressing save, I want to go to advanced settings. And here I need to copy that client ID and the client secret that I can grab straight from the Slack app. So if I go back to Slack and I scroll down to basic information and we scroll a bit, you can see that client ID and a client secret. All you have to do is just copy and paste this in your make app. So that's the client ID. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for the client secret. Like that. I'm going to go ahead. So now I'm going to go ahead and press save. And we should get an error. But don't worry, guys, it's nothing bad. All we want to do is just copy and paste this specific code right here, or the URL, I should say. Then once we've gone ahead and done that, we want to go back to our Slack app and in our OAuth and permissions, if you scroll all the way down to redirect URLs, we just want to add that URL that we just copied a second ago. So add a new redirect URL, add, and then save URLs. Now, if we go back to make, nearly done, guys, I promise. And we go ahead and just refresh this. Now we're going to add it again. So Slack bot, and call this to testing bot. Once again, turn on advanced settings and just copy and paste that client ID and the client secret from Slack. And once that's all done, we actually go ahead and press save. We should get a new pop-up that actually allows us to connect it. Perfect. And then we go down and just press allow, similar to what we did in the previous step when we're actually installing it to our workspace. And just like that, guys, we've gone ahead and actually created our Slack app. Very, very simple, guys. If you have any errors or any questions, firstly, I recommend going over to ChatGPT and just asking your question there. It'll make your life a lot easier. And if that still doesn't work, make sure to drop a comment and I'll be more than happy to assist you with this. It does get a bit tricky. There's a bunch of little steps you have to do. I hope I explained everything properly today. So now that we've actually set up our Slack app within our Slack channel, it's time to actually set up the different automations. Now, I'm going to be giving you 4 different automation examples. The first 2, I'm going to build live with you to give you an idea of how to actually do this. And then the third and the fourth are just ideas that you can incorporate using the same kind of methods and techniques we use in the first 2 automations when we build them live. So let's get straight into it, guys. Now, just to be clear, the main purpose of this video is show you how to use a Slack bot for your onboarding. There are different use cases you can use Slack bots for, and they're an extremely useful tool to have in your Slack channels. But within these automations, we're mainly focusing on automating your onboarding, specifically your client onboarding, but you can copy a very, very similar thing for your employee onboarding. So the first automation we'll be using is very, very simple. So whenever a client pays, that's going to be the trigger for this automation, which is basically the start of any automation. We're going to go ahead and then create a channel for them within our Slack. We're going to create a project for them in our Airtable database. For this, I went ahead and built a very, very simple example project database where we have projects and we have tasks where you can link certain task specific projects. This is very, very basic, guys. Obviously, you'd have to expand on this if you actually wanted to use it, but it's just a way so we can track the different projects, more specifically the Slack channel IDs, which is going to come very, very useful in a second. You'll see what I mean. Then we're going to go ahead and actually invite the relevant team members to Slack. We're going to send a Slack channel message, and within this Slack channel message, we're going to use something that's called a block kit builder to actually have a button there that as soon as the client presses, we can go ahead and actually start the onboarding for them. And then we're going to want ahead and actually invite the client to Slack. Now, if you had an enterprise account, you can easily just invite them automatically. However, for everyone else that doesn't have an enterprise Slack account, you're going to have to manually invite them or create a task for your team to invite them. One thing I will say, guys, if you want access to the mind map I'm using in this video, or the Airtable database, or even any of the automation blueprints, so you can just automatically import these automations into your Make account, you can check out the first link in the description to get access to the free blueprint. It's 100% free. Think of it as a free digital products that we have for every single video, just as a way for us to share any resources we're using. So if you want to use that as you're building this along with us, feel free to check out the first link in the description for free access. But let's head over to our Make account and actually begin building this automation. So I'm going to head and actually leave this alone because we're going to use this in our second automation. So now we're going to go over to scenarios again, and we're going to go ahead and actually create a new scenario. Once we're back on this homepage, all we're going to do is just create a new scenario, and we're going to name this our YouTube Slack bot onboarding step 1. Now, this is going to be part of your onboarding. So the trigger is going to vary significantly based on what you're actually doing for your onboarding, whether you're triggering this for a contract, for example, or a payment. It's hard to do in these videos because obviously I don't have your specific circumstances. So in order to actually suit this to everyone, I'm just going to be using a basic trigger and add in different items such as the name, the retainer, the company name, and the emails, some stuff like that. Obviously, instead of using this, you would use some other automation, such as your new payment, a contract being signed, even up in your CRM. But to keep this example as simple as possible, I'm just going to leave it as that. I'm just going to go ahead and add random values. So the name is going to be McDonald's, I guess. Retainer is going to be 5,000. Service is going to be, let's say, SEO. And for the email is going to be test@gmail.com. So we're going to have to set up a trigger. Now we have to actually use Slack to actually invite them to the channel. Now I've done a whole video on how you can actually automate specifically your Slack onboarding. You can check it out in the top right hand corner. So I'm just going to speed through this as quickly as I can. Go ahead and Slack, scroll down to channels, and here you want to go ahead and actually create a channel. Perfect. Name is going to be the company name. We can get that from the trigger and then call it and then channel. Slack is a bit annoying. Make sure you don't have any spaces or anything like that because it will not like the format. We are going to put this as a private channel. So we're going to press OK with that. Next step we have here is just to create a project within our project database. Once again, This is very, very basic, but if you do want to copy it, you can check it out in the first link in the description, just automatically import it in. So for this, we're going to add a new step, and this time we're going to search for Airtable. Perfect. And all we want to do here is just create a record within our project database. Ahead and actually connect your Airtable account or whatever CRM you're using. Once again, doesn't have to be Airtable. That's just the one I'm using for this example. So I went ahead and actually connected my Airtable account, and here we need to choose the actual database. And for this is our example project database. Once we choose projects, you can see there's a bunch of different information we can add, which we can get straight from our trigger. So firstly, the company name, which if you scroll down, we can get that right here. We can have the retainer. Once again, if you scroll down, get that straight there. The status here is going to be payment complete. And then for the Slack channel ID, we're going to insert that channel ID from the channel we created in the previous step. Once again, you're going to see how this links together in a second. So perfect. We're going to go ahead and press OK with that. The next step we have here is actually inviting team members to that channel we created a second ago. So for this, we're going to add another module. This time it's going to be in Slack again. And then if we scroll down to users, and we're going to want to go and invite users to the actual channel. Now, this will basically be team members that assist your channel every single time. There is a way to map this. So for example, it's not the same team member that's joining every single time, but just to keep it simple, we're going to keep this very, very easy. For this, you're going to go ahead and choose the channel we created in the previous step. So if you go over here to map, we can just include that channel ID right here. And for this, I'm going to add myself and Selena, which is my customer success manager, just like that. So now at this stage, we've set up the trigger, we've automatically created that channel, we've created that project within our project database and Airtable, we've invited team members. Now it's actually time to send that channel message. Now, even though the client hasn't joined yet, it doesn't matter because when they join, they'll still be able to see that welcome message. There is a way to do this, whereas you send a message as soon as they join. However, once again, it's just unnecessarily complicated and this works just fine. So we're going to add another module. It's going to be Slack again. And this time we're going to scroll down to create a message. Now, very, very important, guys. You don't want to use any of the connections. You want to use that connection that we actually set up in the previous step because this will actually allow us to track the responses from different buttons. So once you've and chosen that specific connection with your bot we created in the previous step, you want to go ahead and actually choose that channel just by entering that channel ID we created right here. And now we're not going to focus on the text. If I move myself out of the way, we're going to focus on the blocks. Now, blocks is basically, I think it's HTML code. I'm pretty sure might be something else, but it's just a way we can actually customize it a bit more than just simple text. I'm going to show you guys what I mean right here. This is the key part of this video because this is how we're going to allow our users to actually interact with our message. So if you want to display this, for example, these are the blocks we're actually going to include. They have a bunch of different templates that are ready for you, so you can just copy and paste. I think I can go ahead and actually use the onboarding message right here. So I'm going to use this message and I've gone ahead and have that button right there, which I'm super, super happy with. Obviously, when we go into make, we're going to go ahead and change a couple of things, but for now, I'm going to delete this. I'll go ahead and delete this and I'm just going to rename, and that's pretty much it. So now I can go ahead and just copy all of this, go back to make, and very, very specifically in the block section, not the text section, I'm just going to copy and paste that. Now, there's a bunch of things I want to change. So if we change this, firstly, we don't want to hide David. We want to put hide company name, which we can get once again straight from the trigger. Then if we scroll down, I'll leave the text. I'm not upset with that. Obviously, you have to change it depending on your specific copy. But the main thing I want to do is instead of connect account, I want to put say hello. And the value is going to be hello 1 2 3. Now, this doesn't matter too much, but it's going to make sense a lot later when we have a bunch of different actions because we're going to need a way to actually filter it depending on what button is actually being pressed. Because they're all coming from the same webhook, using clear identifiers for different buttons you have will make your life a bit easier. So we're going to go ahead and press OK with that. And the last thing you want to do is actually invite the users to your channel. Now for this, like I said, you can invite them automatically if you have an enterprise account. But for this example, we're just going to create a task within that Airtable database to send a message to the channel to invite them. So for this, I'm going to scroll down to create a record. And within my base, I'm going to put my example project base. And this time, instead of project, I'm going to go for task. And then I'm going to name this invite to Slack. And I can add the email there so it's easy for them to invite them, I guess. And I'm not going to assign anyone, even though I could. And the only thing I want to change is to status. And for the status, I'm going to go for to do. And I can automatically link that project right here just by choosing the ID, just like that. Perfect. So now this automation is pretty much done. I'm going to run this once just to test it, and we can see what kind of results we actually get. As you can see, it's gone ahead and automatically run. So first thing, we want to go ahead and actually check the Airtable database to make sure everything's updated correctly. I'll move us out the way. For project, we can see we have that McDonald's one project with the retainer, the status, the channel ID, and that specific link task. And if you go back to tasks, see we have that task that actually invite them to Slack with the relevant email from the trigger and that link to the actual project. Now, if you go back to Slack and we go down to the McDonald's one channel, you can see we have that message from McDonald's one welcoming them. And we've also gone ahead and invite the relevant team members to the actual channel. Very, very easy, guys. As you can see, right now, if I press hello, nothing's going to happen because there's no configuration actually set up. That's what I'm actually going to do in the second automation. One thing I did forget to mention, guys, before we actually move on from this step, when you go ahead and actually invite the users, you need to make sure you're actually inviting your app to that specific channel. Now, you can set up permissions within Slack so that it can access channels that it's not a part of. But once again, just to make life a bit easier, you can go ahead and actually invite that specific app to the channel so you can actually interact and actually send that message. It's very, very important. So we're going to go ahead and save this. Now that this automation is done, we actually set up the second automation, which is going to show you how the user can actually interact with the button. So the trigger for this automation, which is the start of any automation, is going to happen as soon as that user presses that say hello button that we set up in the previous step. Now we're going to have some technical steps here. Firstly, to filter it to make sure that it's only applying for the different buttons. This isn't a problem if you're only using this as part of one automation. Once again, because all those responses are going to be going to one webhook, we need to set up a filter to make sure that we're actually only setting this up for the specific automation we actually want. And for that, we're going to use that specific block ID or button ID, I should say, that we set up when we actually create our message. Then we're going to just pass the JSON. This just allows us to see different things from the Slack channel ID. Then we're going to use that pass JSON to find that project using the Slack channel ID. We're going to update the project to the next stage. We're going to create a task for our team within our Airtable database, and then we're going to go ahead and then send another message to the channel with the next steps, following a similar kind of approach. If that sounds like gibberish, just skip forward for a couple minutes and you'll be able to see us actually building this live. So let's go back to make. Instead of actually creating another app, we can go back to that webhook we set when we actually setting up the Slack channel, because this webhook is already connected to our app. If you remember from the previous step where we actually set up the Slack channel. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this now just to clean this up a bit. And guys, if you want to automatically import all of these different blueprints, simply just by going over these three dots and just importing blueprints and have an automation set up in your account, you can check out the first link in the description to access the free digital product for this specific video. That will include all the automation blueprints that we're building in this video, access to the mind map we're using, and also the Airtable database and any other resource we're actually going to be creating. It's 100% free, so I recommend you actually make the most of that. But once we're here, if we go ahead and actually run this, now we go back to our Slack application, and we're just going to go ahead and actually press this button. We go back to make. Now we can see that webhook is actually connected. And if I open this up and check out the data, you can see that's all the information from the McDonald's channel because of that button we just pressed. Very, very cool, guys. So let's do a couple of things first. Firstly, let's get rid of the technical stuff. First, we need to pass the JSON. So for this, I'm going to search for the JSON and then pass JSON just like that. And then for the JSON string, I'm just going to enter that long payload we got from that initial trigger. So if I go ahead and actually run this again, run anyway, and I just press the button again on my second screen, now it's going to go through, and rather than having one long string of random code, you can see we have it in different sections we can actually define it in. Now, one thing we do need to make sure we have here is a filter. Like I said, this isn't extremely important if you really have one automation, but once you actually start developing your Slack app and using it in a bunch of different automations, it's very, very important you have different filters for different things that happen or different paths. So for this, I'm going to go to tools, and I'm going to go ahead and choose a router, just like that. Now here you can set up different filters, but I'm just going to set up one route for this app because we're not doing a bunch of different things. And for the filter here, we're going to go over to condition. And if you go ahead and find that actions tab right here, we want to make sure the value is hello 123 because that's what we set up when we were actually making a message in a previous step within the block kit builder. The more unique you make this, the easier it will be. So for that, we're going to set up that filter. So now the only automations or data that's actually going to go down this path is data from that initial onboarding button we actually sent. Cool. So now that we actually set up the technical stuff, it's time to actually use the Slack channel ID to actually find the project. So for this, I'm going to use Airtable. Once we're here, For the action, I'm going to put search records. And once again, it's going to be the same base. For the actual table, it's going to be projects. And for the field we're actually searching is a Slack channel ID. So if I go to sort and then item 1 and then I select Slack channel ID, I can go ahead and map the actual ID right there, which you get straight from the webhook. With the output, we just want everything. Perfect. If I go ahead and test this again just by running once and just pressing the button within Slack, this will come in and it seems like we have an error. As you can see, the filter has worked properly. If I open this up, we've actually gone ahead and done an error. I'm going to cancel this and I go back to formula. And for this, I'm going to enter that specific field, which is these weird little brackets here, Slack underscore channel and then underscore ID. And we're going to close that. And then we'll put is equal to, and then we're just going to enter that Slack channel ID just like that. And now this should work. We might have to edit that again, but let's see how it goes. If I go back to Slack and run this once and just press that button again, hopefully we should get an output this time. So that's actually gone ahead and actually worked. So now we can see that specific project, which is McDonald's one. Cool. So now we're going ahead and actually update that record. So for this, once again, we're going to use Airtable. And this time we're going to put update a record because we're not creating anything. Same exact thing is going to be example project database. And this is also going to be the project database. And then for the record ID, we should be able to get that straight from here, just like that. Perfect. And the only thing we want to update here is the actual status. So if you go ahead and not map that, we can choose it to join Slack because that's what happened. Perfect. Last thing we want to do within Airtable is actually just create a task. So for that, we want to add another module. Once again, it's going to be Airtable. This time, we're going to create a record. And now we're going to create a task. Now, this can be anything. It can be send a message. It can be delete contract. I'm just basically showing you how you can use these buttons to automatically trigger different things along your onboarding process. So for example, if I go to base, and this time I choose tasks, the only thing I want to change here is the name. For example, this can be create contract. I don't know. Notes, you can add any information about the task, doesn't really matter. The only thing you want to do here is if you go over to projects, you want to link that project we found in the first initial step, just by linking the ID, just like that. Very, very simple, guys. I also put the status to do. Cool. So that's all the stuff that we need to do in our project management database. Now you could create one task, you can create 0 tasks, you can create even 6 tasks. It doesn't really matter. You can do a bunch of different things. I just want to show you different examples. Last thing we actually want to do here is just send another message to the client with another button. And this is going to follow a cycle, right? Within onboarding, there's going to be a bunch of different steps that you're actually doing. And now let's say we've done the first step. This is going to be a prompt for them to actually complete the second step. So if you go over here to add another module and we work for Slack again, if you scroll down to actually create a message, once again, make sure you're using the right bot, so the YouTube testing bot. And for the channel, you want to select from list, change this to private channel because there's a private channel in this scenario. And you want to map that channel right here from the channel ID we get from that initial hook. So actually responding back to that initial message. And once again, you could do text, but we're going to use blocks. So if you go back to the block kit builder, now this time I'm going to send a message to actually incentivize them to actually sign the contract. So this is what I'm going to do. If we go to templates, we're going to use that same onboarding message right here. And you don't have to use these messages. You can obviously create your own, but just to make life a bit easier, we can go ahead and actually delete this. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually redo all of this in Slack. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and copy all of these, go back to mate.com. And if I go to blocks, I'm going to copy and paste. Now a couple of things I want to change here. Firstly is the name, obviously. I want to make this personalized to them. So if I scroll all the way up, instead of David, I'm going to put that company name from the project's ID side of things. And there's a couple of bullet points here. Let's say this is next steps. I'm going to put sign contract, double check billing, I guess. That's about it. We can go ahead and leave the last step. And we're going to add a very, very simple text. Just asking, once you've completed all those things, click the button below for next steps, just like that. And the only thing I want to change here is, remember, first we want to change the next text, which is we want to change this to next steps, or just like that. And once again, the value, because this is going to be the way we actually identify that specific button. So I'm going to name this onboarding underscore 2. Cool. So now if you go ahead and actually redo this whole thing, I go over to Slack, run this module, and just press that button again. as that client. I'll show you guys actually. I'll move this over here. We have that button right here. If I go ahead and just press that button that says say hello, now it's going to automatically run just like that. And it's done all the things we wanted it to do. So let's go ahead and actually check that. So if you open up Slack again, we can see we have that next message right here with the next steps. Customize name, telling us to sign the contract, double check billings, and once you completed the steps, press that button. If you go back to Airtable now, we can also see that it's been updated to the next steps at the join Slack status. And if you go to tasks, we now have 2 tasks to actually create a contract for that specific company. That's pretty much it, guys. So once again, these 2 are just ideas, but the frameworks we're using in these 2 automations will help you when actually creating automations related to your Slack apps in any way. Once again, if you have any issues or anything like that, you can check out the first link in the description to access a free blueprint for all of these automations so you can automatically just import them to your account to make your life a bit easier. Now, let's move on to the last 2 automations. Now, we're not going to be building these live because they're going to apply on the same principles that we just built when we were doing the previous 2 automations, but I just want to give you some more ideas of what you could do. Our first automation is going to be a trigger variation. So rather than having them press the button as soon as they sign the contract, you can set up an automation that recognizes as soon as they sign the contract, find the project in CRM, update the project, and then send a Slack message to that specific Slack channel. This is very, very similar to the automation we built in the previous step. The only difference here is that rather than having the client press the button to let us know once they completed that contract or signed it, I guess, we're setting up automation that automatically detects when the contract is signed and then sends a Slack message automatically. For this, you can use something like PandaDocs, DocuSign. There's a bunch of different options, but I'm only sure the only thing I want to show you is different trigger variations and how you can actually code this within your onboarding process really, really seamlessly. The second automation is a help automation. I think this is very, very important. And if you tie this back to the self-service, all of these always have an employee that can always help if you ever get stuck scanning something or if the machine messes up. So we're going to use the exact same thing. And all the messages we're going to send, I would recommend having a secondary button that they can press if they ever need help. This will do the same exact thing. It'll do all the technical stuff. It'll find the project and then it'll find the specific customer support staff for that account or project and then send a Slack message to them to let them know that the client actually needs help. And then we're going to send a Slack message back to the channel to let them know that someone's actually been notified and we'll be reaching out to you very, very shortly. This is very, very important. Once again, just because you can automate something doesn't mean you should. And when it comes to stuff like onboarding and just customer success in general, you always need to provide people with a chance to actually speak to a human if they ever need help. But guys, that's pretty much it. You now know how to use a Slack bot to actually automate your onboarding. And this doesn't have to be specifically your client onboarding. I would also recommend saying the exact same thing for your employee onboarding to welcome new team members to your team. That's it from me, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. I can guarantee there's no one else on YouTube giving away this much value on a consistent basis. So if you want to see more videos like this on your feed, leave a comment, like the video, and actually subscribe. And the last thing I'm going to say is that in this video, we used the Airtable database. And as you can see, it was pretty ratchet. It wasn't anything I would personally use. If you want to see a video breaking down how to actually build a fully custom project management system from scratch, you can check out this video in the top right hand corner. It's the longest video we've ever done, but I genuinely think it's one of the most valuable videos we've done. We don't hide anything back and we build a completely custom project management tool from scratch where you can just copy and paste in your agency. This is guaranteed to be better than anything like Asana, Airtable, Ocean, anything you're currently using, solely because it's really based on your specific circumstances. So if you want to check out how to actually build something like that for your agency and integrate it into everything we showed you today, you can check out this video right here for more information. That's it from me, guys. It's been a pleasure actually recording this video. Let me know if I rushed through anything. And if you have any questions about anything, make sure to leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to actually assist you guys. We're a very, very small channel. So if you leave a comment, we're 100% going to see it and then give you an in-depth response on how we can actually help you. So any questions, don't feel shy. Make sure to drop them in a comment. It's been a pleasure recording this video, guys. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.